Hello and welcome to the Teachers Mutual Bank Better Money Management webinar series. I'm Betsy Westcott, and my greatest wish is that every Australian enjoys financial well-being. It's my belief that the better skills and knowledge we have around money, the better choices we can make to live a happy, independent and prosperous life. That's why I've dedicated my career to helping people make the most of their money. I'm a financial wellness coach with qualifications in financial advice, home lending and money coaching. And today I'll be your host. Now, for many of us, prioritising our financial well-being can be a bit of a challenge, especially when you're working long hours and juggling all the demands and day-to-day costs that come with a busy working life. That's why we're here to help with information, tools and tips you need to boost your financial well-being, get the most from your pay and work towards those life goals that matter most to you. Across this webinar series, we'll be looking at 3 key cornerstones of good money management: budgeting, saving and being credit healthy. But before we start, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. And an important reminder for all listeners that this webinar is for education and entertainment purposes only. It's not financial advice and it doesn't take into account your objectives, financial situation or needs. You should consider if the information in this webinar is appropriate for you and contact a professional financial advisor if you are seeking financial advice. In today's webinar, we are going to be talking about the B word. And no, it's not budgie smugglers. And no, it's not the big breakfast. It's budgeting, folks. And we're going to find out why budgeting is our best friend when it comes to good money management and improving our financial well-being. And you might like to have a pen and paper or your notes in your app handy in case you want to jot down anything. So I want to give you a very brief run through of what you can expect from today's webinar. Firstly, some of the common challenges and obstacles to budgeting, why budgeting is the key pillar of our financial well-being, how to set up a budget review, and getting our budget in better shape, and finally my top tips for budgeting success and staying on track. Keeping on top of your finances as a teacher can be challenging, especially if you're working as a casual teacher or working on contract. Your income can be up and down a bit, and you might find you need to access funds to cover breaks between contracts or casual teaching work. But even if you're a permanent teacher, wage growth can be quite flat, and you don't have the option of picking up extra shifts or doing paid overtime to boost your pay. So you really need to make the most of what you do earn, which is where good budgeting comes in. So why is budgeting such a sticking point for most of us? We know we should budget, but it can be hard to get started, or we might be okay with getting started, but then we really have trouble making it stick. Some of the common things that I hear around budgeting is that we don't have time for it, we don't know where to begin, we don't have a goal that we're working towards. The excuses are endless. One of the best ways to boost our financial well-being, however, our financial health, is to understand how to budget. And it's actually more straightforward than you might think. Budgeting can help ease financial stress, mapping out a clear budget for yourself and your family so you know what's coming in and what's going out. It helps you to get on top of debt, which can really keep us stuck and affect our overall financial well-being. It helps you to save, whether it's for a house deposit or a holiday or to build a savings buffer in case of unexpected expenses like car repairs. And we'll talk a lot more about that in our next episode when we look at saving strategies. A 2020 Grattan Institute report found that about 10% of working households have less than $90 in the bank at the end of a pay period. That might not even get you a full tank of petrol today. They also found that half of working households across Australia have less than $7,000 in the bank, and 40% have less than $3,600. That means a lot of extra stress in the event of an emergency or lost income. So budgeting is also an important tool for helping build a financial buffer to see us through life's ups and downs. So now we've got a better understanding of how budgeting can help improve our financial well-being. We're going to get into the nuts and bolts of setting up a budget. So what is a budget? A budget is essentially a tool that helps you understand what's happening with your money. It helps you understand what money's coming in versus going out. It gives your money a job to do. So we set up a budget to get a clear picture of our current finances. It helps us to find spending cuts and put a spending plan in place. It helps us to work out how much we can put aside for savings. It helps us to track and monitor our monthly spending. And spoiler alert, because I'll be getting into this a little bit further into the webinar, but our bank actually has a spending tracker feature built into its mobile banking app that tracks your spending for you so you can see exactly what you're spending your money on and where you can possibly cut back and save. So, step 1 is choosing a budgeting tool or format. Now, many of you might not realize that you're already budgeting in some form, even if it's just keeping track of your income and outgoings on a piece of paper or a money diary or a simple spreadsheet. The important thing is that it works for you. There are some great budgeting apps and online budget planners that can take some of the work out of setting up a budget. For example, there's a great budget planning tool on our bank's website. Just type in budget planner in the search bar on our website and you can check that out. Step 2 is to record all your income and expenses. Record all the money that you receive in a month. So it could be your pay, including any regular or other income such as rent or interest or dividends. Then record all your outgoings in that same month. For example, petrol, quarterly bills, takeaway meals, childcare, parking, rent, home loan repayments. The list goes on. There's a constant stream of outgoings and they all add up. So a good place to start is go through a few months of your account statements to make sure you pick up on those quarterly bills and the less frequent expenses like haircuts, school fees, car rego, and so on, and make sure you include them, but as a monthly percentage. So if you spend $250 every 3 months on a haircut, that would be the equivalent of $84 a month in your budget. It's also good to group expenses and outgoings by category. An online budget tool like the Budget Planner on our banking website will help you do that. The Budget Planner tool makes it easier for you by creating those spending categories for you on things like education, utilities, entertainment, transport, and so on. All in all, there's about 15 categories of spend to cover most things, but of course, you can add your own personalized categories too. Some common categories and things that you should make sure to include in them. Things like essential living, your monthly grocery spend, rent, phone bills, rates, power bills, kids' clothing, insurances, medical bills, chemist bills, car rego, and running costs, don't forget them, petrol, parking, tolls, and any loan or credit card or store card repayments that you might have. And of course, don't forget eating out, coffees, entertainment, retail therapy, and don't forget those streaming subscriptions too, or other apps or sports, hobbies, memberships, everything. All right, now, when we set up our budget, there are some common pitfalls that we want to look out for. 1, we might not capture all of our expenses, so make sure you really go through your statements to identify those. But 2, we might forget to include those irregular things like Christmas. It rolls around every year. Number 3, we might forget to include fun and make our budget too restrictive. So make sure you include a balanced, realistic budget so you can be successful. Now, once you've entered all your monthly earnings and outgoings, you should have a pretty clear picture of your finances. Now we're at that budget repair or adjustment stage. This is where we review our budget and put a spending plan in place to take control of our finances and take action. Firstly, a question that you want to ask yourself is, do you have a monthly surplus or deficit? A surplus basically means the money you have left over at the end of each month after you take out all of your outgoings is in the positive. This is how much you can put aside or save. If you're in a deficit, this means that you're spending more than you earn. This means you're likely using credit cards or other types of borrowing to get by. It is a priority for you to get your budget out of deficit. If in deficit, and we've all been there, it's okay, there are simple things we can do to help repair and balance our budget and even get it into the surplus so we can put aside some dollars each month toward our savings and goals. How do we repair a deficit or find more savings if we're in surplus? Well, you need to take a closer look at your outgoings and see where can you trim or reprioritize your spending. If you're in surplus or if we have money left over, there's still opportunities to fine-tune our budget and boost our savings so we can achieve our goals sooner. One way to approach it is to look at the difference between needs versus wants, or in other words, essential spending versus non-essential spending. For example, paying your phone bill or your mortgage or the rent, pretty essential, versus buying takeaway multiple times a week or holidays or extra pairs of shoes. Those things might not be so essential. So weigh up where is the opportunity for you to deprioritize some of the non-essential spending. When we're looking to repair or balance our budget or find some extra dollars to put towards your savings, whether you're saving for a car or a home deposit, or you're looking to build a financial buffer in case of unexpected expenses, The first area we look at is the non-essential spending, the wants category. Okay, pop quiz time. See how many of these you can guess correctly and categorize as either essential or non-essential spending. Shoes for work. It's a need. Takeaway lattes? Probably a want, although I would say some days it's a need. Car upgrade? It's probably a want. Travel insurance for an overseas trip? That's definitely a need. Car repairs? Also a need. And finally, Beyonce tickets. It's a want, absolutely. You got that right. How'd you go? Okay, so already you might have heard the term spending leak. What is it exactly? Effectively, it's non-essential spending where you could cut back and plug leaks because they really add up. An example might be that time that you pop into the pharmacy to grab some paracetamol, but somehow you leave there with not only the paracetamol, but nail polish, dry shampoo, and a face mask that you really didn't need to buy. Or another example could be that every time you fill up the car with petrol, you seem to always come away with a few extra snacks and a couple of ice creams. Once again, non-essential spending leaks. Maybe it's simple as just simply cutting back on something you love rather than cutting it out entirely. Have takeaway just once a week instead of 3 times. Plugging those small spending leaks can add up to big savings over time. Do you want to know how to blow $10,000 a year? Just mindlessly spend $27.39 a day. Ouch. Look for creative and maybe even left of field solutions to reduce non-essential spending without depriving yourself. For example, instead of buying the rug brand new, check Facebook Marketplace to see if you can find it secondhand. Once we've identified areas where we can tighten our spending, make those adjustments to your budget. So you might set budget spending limits for non-essential categories. You might reduce your credit card limits and make paying back high-interest credit debt a priority in your budget. Consider consolidating any high-interest debt into a simple, lower-interest loan to reduce those interest costs. And to find out more on how that works, just enter debt consolidation in the search bar on the website. So, now we've got our budget in better shape. Hopefully, even a little bit left over at the end of the month that we can start putting away. How do we make sure we actually stick to our budget? So here's some of my top tips for setting yourself up for success when you're tracking your spending against your new budget limits and sticking to your budget. First of all, enlist the help of the spending tracking tool in the mobile banking app. This tracks your spending for you so you can see exactly how much you're spending on what and where you could cut back and save. I would also suggest organizing your banking accounts to support your new budget. In addition to that, make sure your budget's realistic and that you're not budgeting out the fun or forgetting those annual expenses like holidays and gifts. Now, I won't go too much into savings tips specifically as we're going to cover savings and saving strategies in episode 2. What we want to really focus on though is all of those healthy spending habits to stay on track. So it's really important that we continually review our budget and adjust accordingly because our circumstances can change. Interest rates might go up, our bills might go up, we might get a pay rise and find we can put more savings aside, or we might start to grow our family and find a big leap in expenses all in one. Whenever something in your life changes, that's the perfect opportunity to review your budget. So, a couple of takeouts from today's webinar. 1, that budgeting is essential for financial well-being. It helps us ensure that our money is working hard for us and that we've got enough money to meet not only our day-to-day needs, but put money aside for the future, which helps us to build financial resilience and take steps towards living the life that we desire. We've looked at some tips on how you might get started on your budget, ways to trim it, and the importance of reviewing it regularly. And that's it for today's budgeting webinar. Thank you for following along. I hope you're feeling a little bit more confident about budgeting and empowered to take that next step to improving your financial well-being. Make sure you tune in to our next webinar where we'll be taking a deeper dive into savings and saving strategies. And don't forget to make the most of our online budget planner tool. Just type budget planner in the search bar on our website. I'm Betsy Westcott. See you next time.